Well, I would say that South by Southwest in 1989 was a pivotal moment for Jim Blossoms. We were selected by the Phoenix New Times to represent the Phoenix Valley music scene, and they sponsored us to go to South by Southwest. We appeared there in 1989, and that's where we began our relationship with ASCAP. And over the following year, we went out to Hollywood every month to perform at the Coconut Teaser in the ASCAP showcases, and those were instrumental in us getting our record deal. And then the following year, we went back to South by Southwest, and we performed at the ASCAP showcase, and the Austin Chronicle named us one of the 10 best acts of South by Southwest 1990, and I remember feeling like that was a pivotal moment for us and that was a great accomplishment. My primary instrument is my voice. I've always wanted to be a rock singer from the moment that I saw Queen Bohemian Rhapsody on the Midnight Special at a sleepover when I was in the 3rd grade. That was a moment where I knew that I wanted to be a rock singer, and I've been on this path ever since. So my voice is my primary instrument, but I've also learned to play some guitar. I've got some really cool guitars. This is a beautiful guitar that I've owned for many, many years. This is a 1964 Gibson LG1 acoustic. And then I've also got this beautiful Gibson Explorer and this awesome Fender Telecaster from the custom shops. And then one of my other primary instruments would be the tambourine. I always wanted to be a tambourine player. I made a point to learn how to play tambourine before I was ever in a band. And I always knew that if I became a lead singer that I was going to play tambourine, and I feel that I've become perhaps the most accomplished tambourine playing lead singer in rock and roll. Well, I just mentioned seeing Queen on the Midnight Special when I was a kid. That was kind of where this all started for me. And then a few years after that, the first concert I ever went to was in Phoenix at Veterans Memorial Coliseum. I saw Cheap Trick open for Kiss on the Love Gun tour, and that was a pretty big deal. Then as I got older, when I was a teenager and into my 20s, I worked at record stores, and there were so many great moments there. Let's see, there was a concert. I went to a concert to see The Fix open for A Flock of Seagulls, and the pre-show music was playing, and it was an amazing song that really blew me away. And so I actually walked up to the front of house desk and I asked the roadies, what is this music? Who are you playing here? And they said, this is Martha and the Muffins, in a really thick British accent. This is Martha and the Muffins. And so I went back to my friends and I sat down, and a few minutes later I hear somebody shouting from over by the mix desk, and it was the same roadie, and he goes, "Hey mate, it's REM." And so I went down to Tower Records the next day and I purchased REM Murmur, and that was a pretty significant moment for me. And then in 1990, I was working at a record store in Mesa, Arizona, and I heard Graham Parker for the first time. And Graham Parker has since become one of my biggest inspirations and influences as a songwriter. It's not much different than it was all those many years ago, starting out as a teenager. You know, it comes down to focus and just effort. It's brute force effort most of the time. Sometimes you come up with a song and it happens immediately, but most of the time it's a matter of crafting something together. And I started out with a little 4-track, and now I've got all of this. And as much as I enjoy all this gear, it's really not that different from what I was doing when I was 20 years old, and it means exactly the same when I write a good song and I've got something that I want to share with people, and I get the exact same feeling of satisfaction that I used to get. I always wanted to write a hit song, and so I was able to do that. Very proud of the fact that I've written a couple of hits, and that was always a goal. And then I always wanted to be on Saturday Night Live, and that was a goal that I was also able to accomplish. And to that end, let me show you a couple of cool artifacts that I have here in the studio. This is a plaque or a trophy that we got from ASCAP for having written the most played song from a movie soundtrack for the year 1995, and that was Till I Hear It From You, which we co-wrote with one of our heroes, Marshall Crenshaw. And then in 1996, we appeared on Saturday Night Live, and here is the photograph that was shown just before we went on air, and this was the tag that was on our dressing room door. And we had a great experience with the host. Phil Hartman came into our dressing room after the show, and he lit up a joint, and he told us a great story about when he was a roadie for Hendrix. Pretty cool. Well, I've got a few different ways to do it. Normally I come up with an idea for a lyric, and I have a notebook, I write it down, and if I don't have my notebook with me, I have the notes application on my phone, and I keep a lot of lyric ideas in there. And then what I'll do when I'm looking to write a song, I'm not as prolific as other songwriters, and I usually do my best and work and am writing all the time when I have a deadline. So what I'll do is I'll pick up the guitar and I'll try to create a riff and find a vocal melody, and then I'll look through my book of lyrics to see if something jumps out and lands in that spot. And then if I'm collaborating with someone, I take what they've got. Usually it's a melody and maybe an idea for a chorus, and I work backwards on the lyrics. A creative vocal melody, you find where the rhythm of the vocal needs to land. Certain vowel sounds appear and feel right in certain parts of the melody, and sometimes I'll have a patchwork of lyrics written out where I'll have the third line and maybe the beginning of the first line, and you have to kind of work backwards to arrive at that third line. And there's other times where the whole thing just sort of appears in my head. I had an experience like that just this morning at the gym. I thought of a lyric and an accompanying melody, and so I pulled out my phone and I used the voice memos application to record a quick thing. And I had to go to a far corner of the gym so nobody would see me or hear me, and I was just singing into my phone in the corner of the gym over by the bathroom. So hopefully that'll turn into a decent song. The advice I would give, this is the same advice I give my son, who is an aspiring musician. The advice I give is to write good songs. It always comes down to the songs. I don't think Gin Blossom's success has very little to do with my voice specifically, or any of the personalities in the bands, or our guitar tones, or any of that. That's all a big part of the big picture, but ultimately it all comes down to songwriting and having good, memorable songs. So you have to just keep at it until you get good at it. That's what I tell my son. And the last question is, describe a memorable songwriting process, or how did you write a big hit? Did you know it was going to be a hit at the moment, and what does your songwriting process look like? All right, well, I touched earlier on having co-written Till I Hear It From You with Marshall Crenshaw and our guitar player, Jesse Valenzuela. Jesse originally came up with the idea for the song, and right around that time, our label, A&M Records, came to us and said that we were going to have a single on a movie soundtrack that summer. Turned out the movie was Empire Records. And they made it clear to us that we needed to write a hit song because it was going to be the lead single from the soundtrack record. So we began the process of thinking about a tune, and Jesse had already come up with this song, and he spent a day with Marshall Crenshaw, and Marshall added his flair to it and improved the melody and the structure of the chorus. And then they made a demo of it. There was no melody or words for the verses. It was just the chord progression and the lyrics for the chorus. They gave that to me, and I remember hearing it and knowing that there was a lot of pressure on me to write something good. And I remember thinking that the song was really good, and I thought to myself very clearly, I remember thinking, all I have to do is not fuck this up. So I worked diligently on the lyrics. Again, the chorus was already written, so I had to work backwards to tell the rest of the story. And I wanted to make sure I was using language and words that reflected what was already written there in the chorus. And so I worked at it. I don't remember how long it took me, maybe a week or so, to flesh out the lyrics. And so we had the song, we demoed it, then we recorded it for real in Phoenix at a place called Vintage Recording Studios, where we also recorded Follow You Down and a few other things. So this all happened so quickly. It was January, we were told we needed to write a song. It was February when the song was written. It was March when we recorded it. At the end of April or somewhere early May, we made the video, and then by June, the song was out there, and it was a hit on MTV and on the radio, and we were doing it on Letterman. And I remember feeling like we were a part of an old school, old-fashioned music industry machine, like the Beatles would have been a part of, where, we were tasked with writing a song, and it all happened so quick, and the next thing you know, it's a hit single. And I've got that little statue over there to show that it was the most played song on the radio from a movie soundtrack that year. So that was a big success, a great moment for Jim Blossoms. That was the last question, everybody. Thank you for visiting me in my home recording studio. Looking forward to being on tour this summer with Toad the Wet Sprocket and Vertical Horizon. I'm just so grateful to have a good job in the rock and roll biz. And this is what I've always wanted to do. Peace and love. Rock away.